Have you ever had a birthday where the silence feels heavier than any celebration could be? Where the hours crawl by, each one reminding you just how alone you really are? That was me, until a knock on my door shifted everything. It happened on one of those early autumn evenings when the sun hovers low in the sky, draping every rooftop in a warm gold. The air carried that crisp bite of the season, laced with chimney smoke and the earthy scent of fallen leaves. I had just finished watering the mums on my porch, expecting nothing more than a solitary night with a glass of wine and an old film I could nearly recite by heart. The kids had called earlier, too busy to stop by. My ex-husband had long since remarried, his life a string of vacation photos with his new wife somewhere tropical. No, I was just here, alone. That's when I noticed movement across the street. Through the parted curtain of Marilyn's house, my neighbor of almost 15 years, a figure shifted into view. She'd phoned me earlier that day, explaining she'd been sent out of town unexpectedly for work. Could I water her plants and bring in the mail? Of course I'd said yes. It wasn't as though I had other plans. But the man behind the curtain wasn't Marilyn. He stepped into the pool of light from her living room, a tall, broad-shouldered man I quickly recognized. Her son, Alex. Over the years, he'd visited on and off from Denver, usually lending a hand with repairs or yard work. Mid-30s now, he carried that easy, understated strength some men just seem born with. I'd waved to him in passing before, once borrowed a cup of sugar, but I'd never quite looked at him the way I did in that moment. Boots crunching over the leaves, I crossed the street and knocked on Marilyn's door. Few seconds later it swung open. "Hey, Miss Lauren," he greeted, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Your mom didn't mention you'd be here," I replied. "She called me last night, asked me to keep an eye on the place." His smile was relaxed, genuine, the kind that reaches the eyes. I could have wished him a pleasant evening and headed home. Almost did. But instead, I lingered there on the porch, caught between the cool night and the warmth spilling from inside. "You want to come in for a bit?" he asked. I was about to make tea, or maybe something stronger. Years of living alone had taught me to politely decline offers like that. But something in his tone stirred a part of me I thought had gone quiet long ago. "All right," I said. Stepping inside, the house greeted me with a scent of cedar and freshly laundered linen, the faintest breeze drifting through an open window. Somewhere, an acoustic guitar played softly, like the moment had been waiting for us. I sat at the edge of the couch while Alex disappeared into the kitchen, returning with 2 glasses of wine. "Figured this might beat tea," he said, handing me one. We tapped our glasses together, a small, delicate sound in the stillness of the room. At first, the conversation stayed on safe ground. His job, neighborhood gossip, his mother's devotion to her hydrangeas. But little by little, it deepened. He asked about my years as a nurse, the garden I kept out front, the quiet that filled my home since the kids had moved out. "You don't seem lonely," he remarked at one point. I laughed softly. "Don't I?" He shook his head. "You seem settled." I smiled faintly. "Settled and lonely aren't opposites, Alex." Something unreadable passed through his gaze. An awareness, a recognition. Not desire, not yet. But a kind of seeing that makes you feel both exposed and safe at the same time. "I should probably get going," I said. But my body stayed rooted in place. "You could," he replied. "Or we could keep talking." And so we did, about childhood dreams, roads we never took, how quickly years vanish when you're busy being responsible. "Do you ever feel like life slipped past you while you were busy doing what you were supposed to?" he asked. The question landed hard in my chest. "Yes," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "That's how I've been feeling lately. Like I blinked, and now I'm wondering what I missed." No lines were crossed that night. No more than the brief touch of fingertips when we reached for our glasses. But there was a quiet current between us, undeniable. "Do you think it's ever too late to start again?" he asked. I didn't answer. But I stayed, and that meant something. When I woke the next morning in my own bed, the light filtering through the curtains seemed different. Nothing had happened, Yet something in me had shifted. He had noticed me, and I hadn't realized how long it had been since that had happened. By afternoon, I'd convinced myself it was nothing more than a pleasant chat between neighbors, a one-time thing, until I heard his voice. "Hey, Lauren." I turned to see him standing at the edge of my yard, coffee mug in hand. "You left this," he said, smiling as he held it out. Our fingers brushed as I took it from him, and that spark flickered again. Not lust, not fantasy, but something deeper. "Thanks," I murmured. He chuckled. "Oh, I didn't dream it either." I could have laughed, waved, and gone back inside. But instead, the words left my mouth before I could think them through. "You hungry?" His brows rose playfully. "Are you inviting me to lunch, Miss Lauren?" I rolled my eyes. "Stop calling me that." And yes, I made too much chicken salad anyway. He crossed the street toward me, and I knew then, whatever this was, it wasn't over. And for the first time in years, I didn't mind not knowing where it might lead.